Sam Kahn of The Athletic joins us now. Sam, have you received your grocery delivery yet?
Yes. Thank goodness. HEB is very quick and efficient. They let me know it was done ready about 30 minutes ago, so I left early and I got it right before I got on air because the thing I was anticipating was being in the middle of answering a question and then having somebody come knock on the window and be like, hey, do you want me to put them in the back? So we avoided that, and I am on the way back home.
Well, I was hoping that we got to hear that personally, but Sam, we are 2 full weeks in, I guess 3 if you count week 0 to the season. Is it too early, or given the way that coaching hiring cycles go, to talk about who's legitimately on the hot seat and not?
I think in most cases it's too early, but when you come into the season with a certain narrative, I think the early season results always throw a few more logs onto the fire. And Billy Napier suffered from this last year. I remember, I think after they lost to Texas A&M, there was a lot of hoopla and a lot of consternation about whether or not he would get canned. And then they finished the season pretty strong. I know, Craig, I heard you read off the schedule. I can't say I'm very confident that it's going to repeat history at Florida because that's a really difficult schedule. But who knows? You never know with this type of stuff how quick things can change. Heck, halfway through the season last year, if you'd asked me 6 games in, I didn't think Dave Aranda would be the coach at Baylor in 2025. And then they ripped off 6 straight wins and changed the narrative quite a bit. I think it's a little early in most cases. I think that the times where I think it is just is when you already come into the season with that. I think back to Ed Orgeron or Les Miles in years past when they came into the season already kind of on the hot seat, and then they lost early season games. And I feel like, and I could be wrong, this is just anecdotal, but I do feel like we're starting to get away from the super early September or early October firings. It seems like programs are waiting a little bit longer and taking a little bit more away these situations. 1, because it's a lot of money there on the hook for to buy them out, but 2, you also have to retain your players. And I think that's one of the reasons why Napier was able to stay is that DJ Lagway is like, this is my guy. And if you want to keep me, you got to keep him. And I think the players having some leverage in that way buys the coaches some time in some of these situations.
Sam, Texas A&M going to South Bend to take on the Irish, who we last saw in week 1 falling to Miami. But right there inside the top 10, A&M right outside the top 15. Do you see an Aggies upset in Indiana this weekend? And what really, I guess, stands out to you about this matchup in particular?
I think it's very possible. I think A&M really is in a good spot here. I love what I've seen offensively from them. They really upgraded the receiver room, which I thought was their biggest albatross last year. When they played elite competition, particularly Notre Dame or Texas, they could not get receivers open. And now you've got Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion, and Terry Bussey is starting to come into his own as a sophomore now. And so they've really got some dynamic options on the outside. I think Marcel Reed's improved as a passer. So you like all those things. I think the 2 things I would say that I'm going to really watch closely here are how well does Texas A&M stop the run, because Notre Dame can run the ball with Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. And so early in that UTSA game, Texas A&M gave up more than 100 yards rushing in the first half, and then they gave up a 75-yard run to start the second half. They looked pretty leaky. And then ever since after that Robert Henry run to start the second half of the first game, A&M's kind of buckled it up. They were pretty good last week against Utah State. They were pretty good in the rest of the UTSA game. So I'm curious to see what the run defense looks like, because if it's bad, then Notre Dame can control this game and keep CJ Carr out of unfavorable situations. The other thing I'm curious is how well do they protect him? I thought Notre Dame's offensive line really had its hands full against Miami. We all saw how that game ended with Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor just tearing those guys up on the outside. If they are not better, particularly in pass protection, then A&M is going to be all over CJ Carr, and I think that works in their favor. I have picked. We had to make a pick for this one. I picked A&M to upset. I just kind of like the momentum that I see with this program, but Notre Dame's a really good program. It's the home game, so it's going to be a tough atmosphere. And by the way, A&M has not won a night road game since 2020. It's a streak that goes back. They've lost 7 road night games in a row.
They also haven't beaten a ranked non-conference opponent since 1979. So
that's crazy, Sam. He said that earlier, and I was like, how is that even possible?
Is that really true? Wait, a ranked non-conference road opponent? Is that true?
Yep. Penn State in 1979.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. That was before, look, I'm 45. That was a year before I was born. I feel like as I get older, most things didn't happen before I was born now. But, and the thing about A&M is they're like classically unlucky in situations like this. They just they'll play really well except for the 2 things that beat them in a close game, like the inexplicable things. And it is like they're some sort of cursed, but this is, with all the weapons that they have on offense, Marcel Reed looks like a much improved quarterback. If their defense can just shore it up a little bit, this one should come down to the end, I would think.
Yeah, I think so. And remember, this is a Notre Dame team with a really young quarterback who, by the way, I think is very talented. I was really impressed with what I saw from CJ Carr. I didn't love how Mike Denbrock called that game. I thought they got away from the run game way too much. And that's where I think Notre Dame can get itself into trouble. And a lot of that, too, it's not just the play calls. It's a lot of RPO stuff, and it's trusting CJ Carr to make that decision whether to pull or throw. And I think he made the decision a lot of times to pull it and throw it rather than hand it off. And I think that's you want to give that confidence to your quarterback. You want to trust your young guy and show him that you have belief in him. But at the same time, you got to feed your best players, and their running backs are their best offensive weapons. So I'll be curious to see. But yeah, I think the fact that you have a young, inexperienced quarterback, I think is something that Mike Elko, as a veteran defensive coordinator who's been in this a long time, I think that's something he probably looked at as a prime opportunity for his group.
Yeah, Marcel Reed's been really good through a couple. He's got an opportunity this weekend to make a lot of noise for himself and the Aggies. So that's definitely one of the bangers, if not the top game this weekend. One that's lost a little bit of its luster because one team lost its ranking. Arizona State, fresh off that Mississippi State loss, hosting Texas State. Now, they played last year, and we didn't know at the time that Arizona State was about to go on this Big 12 title run. They were just a new team in the Big 12, basically. And Texas State gave them all they could handle. Texas State winning a hell of a game last weekend against a rival UTSA. How on upset alert do you feel like the Sun Devils should be here, or do you maybe see it going a little bit differently? Like, where are you on this one that's maybe not on a lot of people's radars, but is certainly on mine?
Yeah, this one was a lot more competitive last year. Of course, they were in San Marcos, and I thought Texas State acquitted itself pretty well. Obviously, a lot of changes, and Brad Jackson certainly been impressed with him so far. I think he's been everything that people said and Sam Marcus said he was going to be. And DJ Kinney and his staff, I think, do a really good job of restocking that roster year in, year out. Not easy to live that way, especially the G5 level, but I think they've overall done a good job of it. I still think this is a game that I feel pretty comfortable with Arizona State. I know they lost last week on the road. That's a game I thought that they had a chance to win, and they came back late, and then of course they have the big coverage bust late, and let that deep ball go that Mississippi State ends up getting the win on. But I still think this is one of the better teams in the country. I still think it's one of the better teams in the Big 12. I love the way they can run the ball. I think they found some things there. So I still think I like Arizona State comfortably in this game. I think going back home, I think Kenny Dillingham will get them woken up, and they'll bounce back and be resilient. But I think Texas State's going to be competitive. I mean, this is a good team. I think this is a team that's going to be reckoned with in the Sun Belt. So wouldn't shock me if they're in shouting distance in the second half. But I think Arizona State for me is still, I think, a really good team that I think is going to take care of business here.
One of the most intriguing games of the week, Sam, is Clemson and Georgia Tech. It's in Atlanta. Clemson, just hasn't looked like world beaters to their first 2 games. They could still wind up being really good, but they just don't look scary right now. And Georgia Tech has kind of made their bones under Brent Key of winning games like this, especially at home. What do you think's going to go down in Atlanta on Saturday?
I mean, here's the thing. As long as Kate Klubnik is not playing at a high level, I think Clemson's in trouble because they have not run the ball consistently. I don't think they have been as treacherous on the defensive line. They haven't been as dominant on the defensive line as you would expect. Because I thought they coming into the year, I thought they had one of the best defensive lines in the country. I don't think they've quite played up to that potential this yet. They've got a lot to clean up, and you going up against a Georgia Tech team that I think very much plays to the identity of its head coach. Very hard nosed, very physical. They strain. They play really hard. They're going to make some mistakes. I know we saw in the opener there's a lot of turnovers early against Colorado, but they're not gonna lose for lack of effort. And when you get a talented backfield like they have, a talented quarterback like they have, I really do. I think this is a really good spot for Georgia Tech, and this is a must win for Clemson because I think if you don't win this game, you really risk the season kind of going off the rails. And I know they ended up coming back to beat Troy last week, but the way they started that game, the way they looked in the second half against LSU, it just for a team that's supposed to be a national title contender, they've been really underwhelming. And this is a spot that I think is a must win for them. But Georgia Tech, to me, if you made me pick this one, I really like the Yellow Jackets.
Yeah, a lot of people seem to. It's a fun game, man, to wait on because this could be throwing some dirt. There's a couple teams, like if they're not careful, you can basically just throw dirt on their college football chances this weekend. Like Notre Dame, if they lose to A&M, that's it, pal. You can't keep an 0-2 team in the rankings, right? So, yeah, very, very interesting game coming up there. Colorado and Houston tomorrow night. You know the Cougs well. Everybody knows Dion and the Buffs. They're still figuring out their quarterback situation, which leads many, along with just the way Colorado has looked, to thinking that Houston's got a great crack here, and I think they do as well. But what's your prediction on this game, Sam? How competitive, and do you see Houston maybe pulling off what would, for them, be a massive win for Willie Fritz and company?
Yeah, certainly a big opportunity for Houston. They haven't been favored in very many Big 12 games. I think only once so far in the 2 years. In the Big 12 conference game, they've been favored. So this is a real chance for them. But, you know, I think they've been okay for the first couple of weeks. A little disjointed offensively at times. I think defensively they kind of picked up where they left off. Been really, really good on that side of the ball. I think I want to see some cleaner play from Connor Wegman and company. I really like the couple transfers they got. Tanner Koziel, the tight end, has been terrific. Dean Connors, the running back, has been, I think, what it was advertised. Colorado, I think we're still trying to figure out to some degree, too. If you'd have told me within a couple of weeks that they'd be playing Ryan Staub at quarterback, I would have told you that Caden Salter and Juju Lewis got hurt. And I don't think they are. And so the fact that Dion is willing to go that route, and it seems like since he was taking the first team reps early this week, I would assume that's who's going to start. It makes it a really fascinating matchup because you don't really know what to make of Colorado at that point. I do think they still have a lot of talent. Obviously, they're not have as much top end talent as they did last year, but I still think they're a good, solid, competitive team. So this is one that I'm very much looking forward to figuring out who these two teams are tomorrow night.
You wrote about Malachi Nelson at UTEP. They play Texas this weekend. He's had a really interesting journey, from being the top-rated player in the country to being at now his third school. What did you find out about Malachi Nelson that would surprise most people when they just try to paint him with the brush of this is a guy who's never happy with what school he's in?
Yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to talk to him and dive into this story, is because I only knew him from afar. Obviously, I live down here in Texas. I wasn't around California recruiting. I didn't get to see him as a recruit very much. And so just like everybody else, I'm thinking, wow, there's this 5-star who flamed out at USC and flamed out at Boise State, now he's at UTEP. And what I found is that there's a lot of layers to this. For one, at USC, he had a shoulder injury that he had to get operated on right after he arrived on campus. So he really wasn't physically ready. And then when the end of that season came, I think he thought he was ready to play, but the opportunity wasn't really there. Miller Moss was still there. Lincoln Riley was shopping in the portal for a quarterback. He wanted to go somewhere to play, and so he went to Boise State. And then course, we all know Maddox Matson beat him out for a job. And the interesting thing is that one of the reasons he went to Boise State was to follow Bush Hamden, the offensive coordinator who was there at the time. He's now the offensive coordinator at Kentucky. Bush is the guy who recruited him back in 8th grade, and they had a long-term relationship. And so he went and trusted Bush, and he's like, hey, I'm going to go play for you. And Bush, signed him. And then about a month later, Kentucky upped the offensive coordinator job, and Bush Hamden left. And so, of course, Dirk Cutter took over as the OC. So things kind of changed up on him a little bit. But after he lost that job, I talked to Spencer Danielson, the head coach at Boise State, and Spencer told me that Malachi was a model teammate. After he lost the job, it was tough. It was difficult, but he was ready. He held Maddox Matson, supported him. Malachi told me him and Maddox Matson still talk pretty regularly. He loves Boise. He didn't want to necessarily leave the place. He really liked that place, but he wanted to play. And so when they went into the portal, they looked for an opportunity to play. And UTEP and Marshall, I think, were the two top choices he ended up having. He ended up turning down more money and opportunity at Marshall to go to UTEP and ended up winning the job. And I talked to Jordan Palmer, who works with a lot of quarterbacks, worked with Malachi, and he told me, he said, hey, this is a really emotionally mature guy who is really talented. He just needs an opportunity. And he finally got one. I thought he played really well last week against UT Martin. He was a little rusty in the first game when they lost Utah State, but last week I thought he looked really sharp and started coming to his own. And I'm excited and enticed to see what he looks like against a really, really good defense, one of the best defenses in the country. Certainly he's going to be a little bit overmatched in terms of the talent that he has on his side versus what Texas has. But I'm really intrigued because he is a really natural thrower of the ball, and I think he's got a chance if he can stick with it, and if they can continue to give him that support and he continues to make plays, I think he's got a chance to still make something of his career. And so I think he's a fascinating guy who is not anything like I expected. When I talked to him, he's not a kid who you would think is like, well, just 5-star kid with an attitude. No, I thought he was a pretty mature kid who I think has the right things in mind. It's just he's been looking for an opportunity. He finally got one.
Yeah, this is I think this isn't a Jaden Rashada like type thing. It's different. And there's it's funny, Sam, there's just nuance to every story when it comes to players like this, right? It's there's depth and there's reasons why, and there's more luck involved or timing than I think a lot of people do realize.
No doubt. And that one of the interesting things about this too, when I talked to him, is that because he left USC and where he was playing for Lincoln Riley, the thought was, hey, he was going to go be Caleb Williams' successor. That was his hope, but it just didn't look like it was going to work out that way. But he still talked to Lincoln Riley. He actually told me before he committed to UTEP, when he was trying to decide what to do, he called Lincoln and he asked Lincoln for his thoughts. And Lincoln talked to him for a while and told him what he thought about the situations and what he thought Malachi should do. And he told Malachi that, hey, I think you should go where you feel most comfortable and where you feel wanted. And that's part of the reason why he ended up at UTEP, because he felt like Scotty Weldon and UTEP had the best plan for him and wanted him the most. But it's interesting. He still talks to Spencer Danielson at Boise State. I found it fascinating. Like that's something that's interesting in the transfer portal world, is I think, back in the day when somebody would transfer or you would lose a recruit, there would be a lot of emotion involved. And I think there still is, but these relationships, I think, they still maintain, because coaches know that they may need a player down the road. Maybe if you miss them the first time, maybe you may need them the second time. Or I think the players are realizing, hey, these guys are resources for us. Just because I left there or it didn't work out there, these people still mean something to me, and they were still part of my life. And so I found that interesting that Malachi still talks to a lot of the people at all those places, and particularly the head coaches. When you would think, hey, maybe the breakup was bad, it wasn't bad in any case. I think in both cases it was a pretty amicable split from USC and from Boise State, and it looks like he's finally thriving at UTEP.
Sam Kahn of The Athletic. Sam, go put your groceries away.
Thanks, man. Have a good one. Talk to you next week.
All right. Sam Kahn of The Athletic with us on every single Thursday.